And I actually wrote into the Boston Globe and gave my opinion on this matter because I didn't think they were representing properly. They wrote a reporter, an investigative journalist, wrote a fantastic article on psychological safety in the workplace and what it means. But it ended on the lawyer who's arguing for a different act than Deb and Vicky. And he said at the end, so it kind of really resonated. He said, you can't measure psychological safety. He said it's a mindset. He said it's a matter of integrity. So as you can see, he's, fabulous lawyer and so on, but he's using moral language. He's using ethical language, and he's suggesting that there's no measurement. And that's actually, from a scientific point of view, completely inaccurate. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's what I'm hoping to bring into this whole discussion around psychological safety in the workplace. So psychological safety, what is it exactly? What is it when we use that term? What do we mean? And especially legally, what do we mean when we use that term? And when I wrote into the Boston Globe, I said to them, letter to the editor, I said, look, it's a fabulous piece, but there's a mistake essentially at the heart of it. And that's that if I was at work and a colleague or my employer, my manager, the leader of the organization broke my leg in an act of aggression or due to their own psychological trauma or whatever, if they broke my leg and we went to a professional and we looked at it on an x-ray and we saw the leg was broken, and then the professional said, look, you're going to have a cast, you're going to have to be on crutches, you might need surgery and pins. All these things would be very normal in our culture. And that's what we think about when we think about safety. And that's measurable with non-invasive technology, the x-ray. For 20 years at least, we have extensive, peer-reviewed, replicated research that shows that we can use non-invasive technology, MRI, fMRI, EEG, and we can look at the damage being done to the brain. It's not a mindset and it's not integrity. It's just physical damage to the brain, pure and simple. It's as simple, really, as an x-ray. So psychological safety, we need to really understand when we're using that term, according to extensive research, it is really what we're talking about is the safety and health of the brain and the body, because you can't separate brain and body. They're like inextricably entwined. They're inextricably entwined through our nervous system. Our nervous system is a series of, we don't have to get into the science, but trust me when I say, it's a series of nerves that connect the major organs of the body and the brainstem. And it's how our brain and body communicate. And they are always 24/7 in communication. And so when you harm the brain, you're harming the body. When you harm the body, you're harming the brain. And so, you can use psychological weapons like verbal abuse or intimidation or threatening, assaults that don't touch the body but threaten harm and violence. You can use ignoring somebody, not giving them feedback, rolling your eyes when they speak, making jokes about them that are humiliating. All of these different things, they don't touch the body, but they do damage to the brain. And when they do damage to the brain, they also hurt the body, especially the internal organs. So, we can measure all these things. We can take blood pressure. We can measure the heart, how it's getting impacted. We can look at gut issues, and we can look at the brain. And because we can measure all of these things, we have to stop talking about things like integrity and mindset. They're very outdated when we're talking about psychological safety. We need to understand that all forms of bullying, all forms of harassment and abuse can do physical damage to the brain, and they can harm brain function. The body does not need to be touched for the damage to occur. So again, we all know that long list of things that people do that don't touch the body, but that make people very ill. They stop going to work, they start having health problems, they can't concentrate, it affects their relationships, they begin to self-medicate, and they don't know that they have these injuries. And the reason why I'm spending time right now on the injuries to the brain and the nervous system and the body is because people are not motivated to get better. They're not motivated to do all these evidence-based practices that we're going to talk about at the end, unless they know they're injured. And we don't even know we're injured because we are a society that does not talk about the brain. We don't talk about 20 or more years of extensive peer-reviewed replicated research. And that's my big goal. I want to see that front and center in all these discussions. This will give you an example of what we mean when we say you can see on a brain scan visible damage. Now, people used to think that PTSD was something you only got at war. And of course, yes, you get it at war. That's very obvious. But you can also get it by being harassed, sexually harassed at work. You can get it from being bullied at work. You can get it from reporting to your higher ups that you are being abused on a regular basis, and they fault you for it, and HR gets you out of the institution as if you're some kind of a problem. You're a complainer. You're 8 million different excuses they make for the reason that you're suffering. All of those things can give you PTSD. And if we looked at your brain on a brain scan, we could see, and this is, I'm not a neuroscientist. You have to really go to the experts and have them do the reading. But this is just a very obvious one. It's so obvious that someone like myself, who's a researcher and educator, but I am not a neuroscientist, can see it. So the PTSD brain, as you can see, all of that missing activity, the purple, all that missing activity is a brain that's very much in shutdown. It is not a high-performing brain. It's not healthy. It's not strong. It's very muted. It's unwell. It's not electric. And you can see it very, very quickly in comparison to a brain that does not have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And again, just to remind you, I don't want people to feel demoralized. It's really important to know that post-traumatic stress, once you know the brain science, can very quickly change into post-traumatic growth. You can return your brain 100% to the healthy brain that you're seeing on the left hand of the slide, and you can even make it stronger. So these aren't, oh, I was bullied at work, I was harassed, these things happened to me, my life is ruined. No, it's absolutely not from a brain point of view. You can restore your health. You can absolutely repair the scars, the neurological scars that happen from these kinds of behaviors. That's a super good news that we're going to come to at the end of the presentation.